All right, let's dive deep today. We're going to be tackling one of those mysteries that's really gripped the world for over a decade now.
Yeah.
The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. It's a story that's generated countless theories and left so many questions unanswered.
Yeah, it truly is one of the most perplexing events in aviation history. A Boeing 777 just vanishes mid-flight. In this day and age, it just seems almost impossible.
Right. March 8th, 2014, MH370 takes off from Kuala Lumpur, headed for Beijing, with 239 people on board, and then just silence.
And that silence has really echoed, through years of investigations and searches and speculation. It's fascinating how this one event just continues to capture global attention.
Okay, so let's just break down what we know. MH370 was a Boeing 777-200ER, typically a very reliable aircraft.
Yes.
That's what makes this disappearance even more bizarre.
Indeed. The 777 has an excellent safety record, so the fact that it vanished without a trace just deepens the mystery. It raised so many questions about what could have possibly gone wrong.
And the flight manifest shows passengers from 14 different countries, largest group being 153 passengers from China.
The human element of this tragedy can't be overstated. Hundreds of families left in agonizing limbo, desperate for any information about their loved ones.
Yeah, it's just awful. Let's walk through the timeline. Takeoff was routine. Early communication with air traffic control was normal. But then things take a turn. 1:19 a.m. Malaysian time, that's the last verbal contact with the plane.
And shortly after that, MH370 vanished from secondary radar. That's the system that relies on signals from the plane's transponder to track these commercial flights.
So it just disappeared from the screens.
Yeah, pretty much.
That must have been a heart-stopping moment for the air traffic controllers.
Absolutely. However, military radar, which uses a different system, was actually able to track MH370 for another hour. And this data revealed something truly unexpected. A sharp turn westward, completely off its intended course.
Wait, so it wasn't just a sudden disappearance. Someone or something intentionally changed the plane's direction.
That is the key question. Military radar showed MH370 crossing the Malay Peninsula, then flying over the Andaman Sea. The final radar blip placed it about 200 nautical miles northwest of Penang Island, and then nothing.
And that's where the search efforts come in, right? I remember this being the most expensive search in aviation history.
It was a massive undertaking, involving multiple countries, cutting-edge technology. Initially, the search focused on the South China Sea, where the plane last appeared on civilian radar.
Makes sense to start there, but then the focus shifted dramatically, didn't it?
It did. Analysis of data from Inmarsat, that's a satellite telecommunications company, revealed something stunning. MH370's satellite communication system continued to send automated handshakes even after it disappeared from radar.
So even though the plane wasn't actively communicating, it was still sending out these signals.
Exactly. And while these signals didn't contain specific location data, experts were able to use the timing and frequency of these handshakes to estimate the plane's distance from the satellite at various points. Think of it like using the strength of a Wi-Fi signal to get a general idea of how far you are from the router.
Okay, I can see that. Interesting. So what did these handshakes reveal?
They pointed to a shocking conclusion. Instead of staying in the South China Sea, MH370 had continued flying south for hours, ending up in the vast and remote southern Indian Ocean.
Thousands of kilometers from where everyone was initially looking.
Exactly.
That's a game changer. But how could a plane fly for that long, seemingly on its own?
That's where the real mystery lies. The handshakes only indicate that the plane's communication system was still active. They don't tell us about the state of the crew or what was happening on board.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a huge ocean, and now the search area has expanded drastically. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. But the haystack is an entire ocean.
And that's where the debris, or lack thereof, becomes even more crucial to the investigation.
You're talking about the pieces that started washing up on remote islands years after the disappearance, right?
Yeah.
I remember those news reports. It was like finding clues from another world.
Exactly. And some of those pieces were definitively linked to MH370, adding another layer of complexity to the story.
Like the flaperon that was found on Reunion Island. What was so significant about that piece?
The flaperon, a part of the wing, was a crucial piece of evidence because it confirmed that MH370 had indeed gone down in the southern Indian Ocean.
So it confirmed the general location, but not the how or the why.
Precisely. And the mystery deepened with the discovery of other pieces, like a no-step panel from Mozambique, and even more telling, a flat-track fairing with a stenciled code matching Malaysia Airlines.
So more pieces, More confirmation of the location, but still no closer to understanding what happened.
That's right. And this is where the investigators had to rely on more than just the physical debris. They turned to drift modeling, a sophisticated technique that uses ocean currents and weather patterns to trace the debris back to its likely origin.
So they were trying to rewind the clock, so to speak, to see where the debris likely entered the water.
Exactly. It's like putting together a giant puzzle, but instead of a picture, you're trying to reconstruct the final moments of a flight.
And the barnacles. I remember reading about scientists trying to analyze barnacles on the debris. What was the thinking behind that?
Barnacles are fascinating creatures. They attach themselves to surfaces in the ocean, and the species vary depending on the water temperature and location. By analyzing the barnacles on the flaperon, scientists hope to map its journey through the ocean, potentially narrowing down the crash site.
It sounds like a long shot, but at this point, every piece of information, no matter how small, could be crucial.
Absolutely. And it's this lack of a clear picture that's led to so many different theories about what happened to MH370.
All right, let's get into those theories. I know there's no shortage of them, and some are more plausible than others. But where do we even begin?
Well, one of the most compelling yet controversial theories is the idea of deliberate pilot action.
So the pilot intentionally diverted the plane. That's a heavy accusation. What's the evidence?
There are a few things that lend some weight to this theory. Firstly, the FBI analyzed the captain's home flight simulator and found a simulated flight path that closely mirrored MH370's suspected route over the Indian Ocean.
That's a pretty big coincidence, to say the least. But wouldn't there have to be a motive for something like that?
That's the challenge with this theory. Despite the simulator data, investigators have never been able to establish a clear motive for the captain to deliberately crash the plane. No signs of financial distress, no political or extremist ties, no personal conflicts. It's a puzzle within a puzzle. Yeah, it's true. The lack of a motive makes this theory hard to fully embrace. But it's worth noting that not all actions, even tragic ones, have clear and easily identifiable motives.
I suppose that's true. Human behavior can be pretty complex. So if not the pilot, what else could explain MH370's deviation and disappearance? What about a catastrophic mechanical failure?
Mechanical failure is always a consideration in aviation incidents. Something like a sudden loss of hydraulic pressure could explain the deviation from the flight path. However, a complete loss of communication and the plane flying for hours afterwards makes this less likely.
What about something like a fire? I've heard that electrical fires can be especially dangerous on airplanes.
Yes, an electrical fire could certainly explain a loss of control and the disabling of communication systems. But again, the fact that the plane continued flying for hours after the last communication makes the scenario less probable. Fires tend to be pretty quick and devastating events.
Okay, then what about something more insidious, like a slow decompression event? Couldn't that lead to hypoxia, which I know can impair judgment and even cause unconsciousness?
You're right, hypoxia is a serious concern in aviation. A slow leak in the oxygen system could have gradually incapacitated the crew, leaving the plane flying on autopilot until it ran out of fuel and crashed.
It's a chilling scenario to think about.
Well,
But is there any evidence to support this theory?
unfortunately, not really. While it's a possibility, there's nothing in the data or the recovered debris to specifically suggest hypoxia was a factor.
So many possibilities, so few answers. What about the hijacking theory? I remember that being a big focus early in the investigation.
It's understandable that hijacking was considered, especially with the two passengers traveling on stolen passports. But as the investigation unfolded, this theory lost traction. There was no communication from any hijackers, no demands made, and the plane's flight path didn't match any typical hijacking scenarios.
So we've got deliberate pilot action, mechanical failure, hypoxia, hijacking. All these theories, each with its own strengths and weaknesses, but none offering a definitive explanation.
It's a true aviation enigma. And the lack of a definitive cause has only fueled more speculation and conspiracy theories over the years.
Let's shift gears for a moment and talk about those search efforts. As we've said, it was the most expensive search in aviation history. What made it so challenging?
The sheer scale of the search area was one major challenge. Remember, we're talking about a vast expanse of the southern Indian Ocean, one of the most remote and unforgiving regions on Earth.
And deep right, I remember reading that the average depth of the Indian Ocean is over 2 miles.
That's right. The depths involved made the search even more difficult, requiring specialized equipment and expertise. Not to mention the unpredictable weather conditions and strong currents that constantly hampered the search effort.
So you have this massive area, incredibly deep water, and challenging conditions.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the plane essentially vanished without a trace. It's no wonder this search dragged on for so long.
It's a testament to the dedication and persistence of the search teams that they didn't give up hope even when faced with such daunting obstacles.
You mentioned earlier that Ocean Infinity, a private company, stepped in to continue the search after the official efforts were suspended. What was their approach and what made their technology so unique?
Ocean Infinity specializes in deep-sea exploration and survey work. They utilize advanced autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, which are essentially underwater robots that can map the seafloor with incredible detail and accuracy.
So instead of relying on traditional sonar from a surface ship,
Yeah.
they send these robots down to do the heavy lifting.
Exactly. These AUVs can cover vast areas of the seafloor much more efficiently than traditional methods. They're equipped with high-resolution sonar cameras and other sensors that provide a detailed picture of the underwater environment.
And what was their agreement with the Malaysian government? It was something like no fine, no fee, right?
Yes, that was a unique aspect of their involvement. Ocean Infinity agreed to take on the financial risk of the search, only getting paid if they successfully located the wreckage. It was a bold move, driven by both a desire to solve the mystery and confidence in their technology.
So they were basically putting their money where their mouth is. Did they find anything?
Unfortunately, despite months of intensive searching and covering a massive area, Ocean Infinity came up empty-handed. They called off the search in June of 2018, leaving everyone even more baffled.
Another dead end. It must have been incredibly frustrating for everyone involved, especially for the families waiting for answers. But even though they didn't find the wreckage, did this search effort at least provide any new information?
While they didn't find the plane, Ocean Infinity's search did help to refine the search area, even further narrowing down the possibilities. And the data they collected about the ocean floor in that region was incredibly valuable and is still being analyzed today.
It sounds like every search, even if it doesn't find the plane itself, adds another piece to the puzzle, bringing us closer to understanding what happened.
You could say that. And in a way, the search for MH370 has become a catalyst for advancements in deep-sea exploration technology. The tools and techniques developed for this search are now being used in other areas of ocean research and exploration.
It's fascinating how this one event, as tragic as it is, has pushed the boundaries of what we know and how we explore our oceans.
It's a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, there's always the potential for discovery and progress.
Okay, so we've had these massive search efforts, both official and private, but still no wreckage. Then in 2024, researchers from Cardiff University made a surprising discovery, right? Something about underwater sound recordings.
Yes, this was a fascinating development. Researchers at Cardiff University were analyzing hydrophone data, essentially underwater sound recordings from the time MH370 disappeared. Their analysis suggested that the impact of a large aircraft like MH370 should have created a detectable pressure signature, a distinct sound in the hydrophone data.
So they were looking for the sound of the crash itself, and they didn't find it.
Exactly. The absence of this expected pressure signature raised questions about the official timeline and the presumed location of the crash.
So they're essentially challenging the established narrative, suggesting that we might be looking in the wrong place or at the wrong time.
That's the implication. Their research doesn't provide concrete answers, but it does highlight the need to constantly reevaluate the evidence and to consider alternative possibilities.
It seems like just when we think we're getting closer to solving this puzzle, a new piece emerges and throws everything into question again.
That's the nature of this mystery. It keeps us guessing, keeps us searching for answers.
So after all this time, where do things stand with MH370?
Yeah.
Are there any active searches or investigations ongoing?
As incredible as it sounds, yeah. In December 2024, the Malaysian government, fueled by these lingering questions and the unwavering hope of the families, announced yet another search effort.
Wow. After all this time, that's a testament to their commitment to finding answers.
Indeed, and this time they're partnering with Ocean Infinity again.
So they're going back to the company that uses those advanced underwater robots. What's the focus of this new search?
As of February 2025, they've resumed searching, focusing on a new 15,000 square kilometer area in the southern Indian Ocean. It's based on the latest analysis of the existing data, including the hydrophone data we discussed earlier.
It's amazing that even after all these years, the search for MH370 continues. It's a story that just won't let go of our collective imagination.
It speaks to the profound human need for closure, for understanding, and for answers. The families of those on board deserve nothing less.
You're absolutely right. It's their resilience and determination that keep this story alive. They keep the pressure on for answers.
It really is remarkable. They've formed support groups, organized campaigns, and tirelessly advocated for continued searches. They haven't let the world forget about MH370.
And it makes you wonder what you would do in such a situation. To face such a profound loss without any explanation must be incredibly difficult.
It's hard to even fathom, but their strength and their refusal to give up hope are truly inspiring.
So we've talked about the flight, the disappearance, the theories, the extensive searches, and the impact on aviation. But what about the human cost? What about those left behind?
The human cost of MH370 is immeasurable. The emotional toll on the families, the unanswered questions, the lack of closure, it's a wound that may never fully heal.
Beyond the families, this event seems to have touched a nerve globally. Why do you think MH370 continues to fascinate people, even after all these years?
I think it's because MH370 represents a collision between our modern world of technology and connectivity and the vast, unpredictable power of nature. It's a reminder that despite all our advancements, there are still mysteries we may never fully solve.
It's a sobering thought. In a way, MH370 forces us to confront our own vulnerability, our own fear of the unknown.
It does, and it challenges our perception of what's possible. In this age of instant communication and global tracking, the idea that a large passenger jet could simply vanish is almost incomprehensible.
It's like a story from another time, a maritime mystery from centuries past. But it happened in our lifetime, and that makes it all the more unsettling.
And that's why it continues to resonate with people. It's a story of lost mystery and the enduring human spirit in the face of the unknown.
As we wrap up this deep dive into MH370, what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners? What should we remember about this event?
I think the most important lesson is the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing the time we have with our loved ones. MH370 is a stark reminder that life can change in an instant, and that even in our modern world, there are still forces beyond our control.
It's a reminder to appreciate the connections we have, to never take anything for granted.
Absolutely. And even though the definitive answer to what happened to MH370 remains elusive, the search for truth, for understanding continues. The families deserve closure, and the world deserves answers.
Their unwavering hope and determination are a testament to the power of the human spirit. And perhaps one day, new evidence will emerge, shedding light on this enduring mystery.
I sincerely hope so. Because until then, the story of MH370 will remain a haunting reminder of the mysteries that still lie hidden in our world.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the perplexing case of MH370. It's a story that continues to unfold, and we'll be sure to keep you updated on any new developments. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop asking questions.